Good evening. Welcome to the Fright Files. My name is Chris Harmon, but you can call me Dr. Fright. Strap in your seatbelts because we're going on a wild ride tonight as the Fright Files dives deep into the most recent UFO encounters and Bigfoot encounters, and even some encounters from a few years back that are so frightful you must hear it and see it to believe it. Pay very close attention to these encounters you're about to hear because this could happen to you. And any one of these encounters could take place in your own backyard, your own neck of the woods. You will hear reports of triangles, oval-shaped objects, unknown objects, and even encounters with Bigfoot that are so frightful you may not even sleep tonight. Before we get started, I need you to ask yourself one question. Can you withstand till the end? And yes, Madam Mina will be here shortly to tell a few tales of paranormal and unknown and other encounters. Welcome to the Fright Files. Our first encounter, December 7th, 2025. Duration 15 seconds. Number of objects 1. Location Chaska, Minnesota, USA. Location details: looking to the northwest, possibly over Carver, Minnesota, but was over Chaska, Minnesota. Shape of the object was a sphere. Color not available. Estimated size 250 feet to 500 feet. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer 210 to 230 west-southwest. Angle of elevation 90. Closest distance 1,500 feet. Estimated speed broke physics, instantaneous with no drag. Characteristics: lights on object. And as the witness says, I saw 3 lights in the night sky, move left to right in space, then moved right down to 1,000 feet, then swung right to left in an arc. Around 12:45 or so, I was looking up at Jupiter, then Uranus. Then looking up to the northwest, I saw 3 lights in a line, move from right to left. I thought it was Starlink, but Starlink has more lights in its chain. These lights then came straight towards me and stopped over the west side of Chaska, Minnesota. In an instant, it shot straight towards the town at 90 degrees angle. The lights were 1,000 to 1,500 feet. It then immediately swung in an arc form, right to left. Or should I say, right to left to the southeast of Chaska, Minnesota, covering miles of sky in less than a second. There was no sound. I always hear jets and propellers and planes at 800 to 1,200 feet above our work. It should have resulted in sonic booms, and it displayed mastery over physics. It appeared to skip for just a second before making the incredible arcing maneuver. There was no drag, or log when the craft swung around to the southeast. There was one smaller craft tailing the lead, going the same exact speed with no drag. And as the investigator states, while standing outside stargazing at Chaska, Minnesota, the witness observed three lights up in the sky, doing maneuvers that has never been seen from conventional aircraft. He observed. Now, the witness stated that the duration of the sighting was 15 seconds. Now, folks, as you heard in this story, the craft moved instantaneously, making no sound, no booms, no nothing. And in most cases that are investigated, we get reports of crafts not making any sound. And they can move so quickly that you don't even have a chance to register what it is you just saw. As investigators stated, I checked Flight Radar 24 and found nothing. There was no flights in the sky at that time. Investigator states I was unable to find any information about a SpaceX Starlink satellite over Chaska, Minnesota. The witness did mention that his brother had a UFO sighting a while ago, and that UFO split into several UFOs. I repeat, as the witness states, his brother had a UFO sighting, and that UFO split into several UFOs that danced around before flying away. I've heard that before in other reports. The witness stated that his brother may have been abducted because he had lost 3 hours of time that day. And this case was closed as an anomalous sighting. What an amazing case that was. You heard two reports. The witness stating his sighting, which had instantaneous maneuvers, and the witness stating his brother had a sighting where the UFO split into different UFOs, like several UFOs coming out of one, which I've heard that before, and then losing 3 hours of time, thinking maybe his brother was abducted. What an amazing report that we just heard. Let's move on. And I also want to thank everybody in the chat room who is here tonight. This is going to be an amazing hour because we have some actual drawings by witnesses, and you're also going to hear and see photographs taken by witnesses as well as drawings. And Madam Nina will be here shortly to tell us some of her fascinating tales. And you will also hear two Class A and Class B UFO reports, not UFO, but Bigfoot reports as well. So stay with us as we get ready for our next tale. This occurred on September 26, 2023. Why is this report so interesting? Because it was reported on September 28th of 2025, but it occurred on September 26, 2025. So, duration 20 minutes, Number of observers 1. Location Benica, California, USA. Location details Benica, California. Shape triangle. Color too far away to see. Estimated size commercial airplane size. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer, the object was in the south. Angle of elevation 90 degrees. Closest distance 20,000 feet. Estimated speed, commercial airplane speed, except when it came to a halt. Characteristics, lights on object or haze around object. As the witness states, something told me to run into my backyard in a hurry. When I got there, I saw what appeared to be a lightened triangle shape in the sky. The witness states, on the night of September 26, 2025, around 11 p.m., I witnessed a round, gold-like light traveling across the sky, like a commercial aircraft. About 2 seconds, the aircraft appeared on a dime, changed direction, and moved towards my direction. When the aircraft moved to what looked like almost over me, but as high in the sky as a commercial aircraft, it looked like it stopped and began hovering. I based on the lights and everything the aircraft looked to be triangle with a bank of continuous multicolored lights going from the nose along the side to the ends. Then on the underside was a circle of white lights with a red light in the middle of the circle. I've heard that from reports as well as from being an investigator. So I know this is a true sighting. I panicked and was preparing to run, says the witness, when all of a sudden I immediately felt calm. Don't ask me why. I then waved at the craft and yelled, "Don't beam me up, and don't take my dog, and don't scare us." Then the lights, which moved in a pulsating wave-like motion, began blinking like Morse code. I say this because after the blinking, I got the feeling that the aircraft was saying, "We're not here to scare you or beam you up, just wanted to say hello." Oh my God, the aircraft slowly began traveling over my house, towards my front yard. I remember that my phone was on the kitchen counter, so I ran through the kitchen, grabbed my cell phone, and ran out to the front yard so that I could see the plane on its flight. Or at least catch all the tail of it to maybe prove to myself that this indeed was a commercial aircraft. I looked in all directions. When I got to the front yard, it took 4 seconds to get from my backyard to the front yard. That was no aircraft in the sky, in any direction at all. Nothing in the clear night sky. What a fascinating encounter that was. And as the witness states in the investigation, no, as the investigator as the investigator states, excuse me for having technical glitches here, that's what happens when you're Dr. Fright. The witness was contacted by phone regarding her flying triangle sighting. She was outside of her house on September 26, 2025 at 11 p.m. when she first observed a round gold light traveling across the clear evening sky. To the north, added that the gold light was traveling across the sky like a commercial aircraft and was approximately 20,000 feet in the sky. As the witness stated, that the gold light appeared to be attached to the underside of a craft that stopped abruptly, did a flat turn, and flew directly above her and stopped again. The witness also stated that the craft stayed at the same altitude when it hovered over her. As the witness added, there was no sound coming from the craft. She also stated that the lights on the craft appeared to be in the shape of a triangle and it was traveling at a normal commercial airline speed. As the witness stated, that she observed multiple colored lights on each side of the craft that came to a point and appeared to be on the front of the craft, then stated that there was a large bright dome like white light in the middle of the craft that was pulsating, and in the middle of the white light was a red light that remained constant. As the witness stated, that the blunt end of the craft was dark and was barely visible. The witness stated that she felt like the craft interacted with her. And she said that when she first observed the craft, she started to panic and thought about running away. She stated that the craft lights began blinking, which made her feel like it was communicating with her in some way. That she stayed and watched the craft for a few more minutes and then decided to go get her phone and take pictures. That when she ran back to her original spot outside, the craft was gone. As the investigator says, I checked flight radar 24 and found nothing. The witness stated that she would ask her neighbors and friends if they saw anything that evening and get back to me if she finds another witness. She stated that she would draw a picture of the craft and send it to me. Now attached, I am classifying this as an anomalous sighting. What an interesting case that was, folks. Very interesting. And now, as soon as we come back from this brief break, you're going to hear from Madam Mina and a few other interesting stories. All right, welcome back to the Fright Files. And we are having an amazing time here tonight. You've heard two wonderful, exciting, frightful UFO stories involving missing time, lights on craft, and a whole lot more. Which brings us now to our next fascinating tale. This occurred September 24th, 2025, and was reported on January 3rd, 2026. Duration 30 seconds. Number of observers 1. Location Glynn, Minnesota, USA. Another Minnesota sighting. Location details. The object flew over my house from the northwest. And then the object flew over my house from the northwest to the southeast, almost towards Mankata. Shape chevron. Moving cloud. Shape chevron. Color moving cloud como. Estimated size 100 to 300 feet. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer northwest. Angle of elevation 45. Closest distance 500 to 1500 feet in altitude. Estimated speed 200 to 400 knots. Characteristic lights on object or haze around object. Animals reacted. And as the witness states, was taking my dogs outside, I noticed a weird anomaly in the corner of my eye. Saw the object fly over my head. Boomerang, chevron shape, moving cloud, como, almost like reactive como. No noise emitted from the craft. About 50 red dots on the underside of the craft. All uniform, distance, color, and size. Object looked so perfect it was like seeing a video game with such good graphics you can't tell it's fake. Left with feeling of overwhelming emotions, strange coincidences happening. Glasses breaking less than 24 hours after seeing the object. Finding a couple nails in my walking path inside my house after I walked through the room. After seeing the object, the image of it is so burned in my head, I can recall that moment like it happened 10 minutes ago. The investigator who reported this says, while standing in his backyard watching his dog, the witness observed a black boomerang-shaped craft silently hovering over him. On September 24, 2025, at 9:20 p.m. Central Time, the witness was standing in his backyard with his two dogs when he observed a dark craft out of the corner of his eye that flew directly over him. The witness stated that the craft was silent as it stopped and hovered over him, then stated that he noticed that both of his dogs were all of a sudden very quiet, spooked, and had their tails between their legs. Added that the dog's behavior was completely out of character. Witness stated that the weather was clear and the craft was approximately 500 to 1,000 feet in the air and approximately 360 feet from the wingtip to wingtip C. Then the witness stated that the aircraft appeared to be camouflaged, and the only way he could explain it was it looked like a craft was wrapped in a serum wrap or how the predator looks when it was camouflaged. The witness stated that the craft was perfectly smooth, like it was one piece with no obvious lines, markings, or rivets. The witness stated that he observed approximately 50 to 70 red lights in a perfect grid pattern underneath the craft, and each one was approximately the size of a street lamp. The witness also stated that he noticed that the aura around him was usually quiet. The area around him was usually quiet. Unusually quiet, excuse me. He added that the normal sound he hears in his backyard, even that late at night, seemed more quiet, muffled. And this is what I hear from other witnesses when I interview them for cases, that everything gets real quiet. It's like nothing is even happening. It's like everything around you comes to a complete halt. The witness stated that he felt the craft somehow chose him to fly over, and when he noticed it, it quickly flew away with no sound or disruption. The witness stated that after his sighting, he had some strange coincidences happening to him, and that the first coincidence was when his glasses shattered within 12 hours after seeing the craft. He's never had that happen before. He also stated that when he was upstairs in his residence, he saw two screws on the floor that were in his walking path, and both screws were pointed up. And that's never happened before. And they look brand new. The witness also stated that he experienced with observing conventional aircraft, helicopters, and drones, and he knows the sounds each one of those makes at high altitudes. And he stated that he's never seen anything like the craft he observed on September 24th, 2025. What an interesting case that was. And I wonder if Madamina is here to join us. Madamina, do you have a story for us? Welcome to the Fright Files.
Yes. So today, all of my stories are going to be mermaid and siren themed. So I have a few, and whatever I don't get through, I can continue on next week as well. But yes, I have a few stories for today, or for tonight. This first one comes from the subreddit r/mermaids, and it's about siren and mermaid sightings. There's a note that says that this is copied, pasted from a previous comment of this person's. This comes from antique_tradition_72. My brother doesn't actually remember this now, but back when we were kids, he's 3 years younger than me. We were on a trip with my grandparents at a condo timeshare in Florida. An important thing to note at this point was this was before we knew I needed glasses, so I could not see. So I could not see very much. Oh, sorry. I could not very much see further than like a foot in front of my face. And that was normal to me. We were on one of those little concrete bridges over the tunnels with the runoff streams that flow down to the beach. You know what I mean. And it had actually made a pretty big, deep pool right below the bridge. It was all murky and brown and stuff. We were messing around on the bridge, and my brother leans over to look down into the runoff pool, and he just freezes. I ask him, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "You didn't see her?" And I was like, "See what?" He swears to me up and down that there's a mermaid in the runoff pool. He described her as looking a couple years older than me. I was 11 to 12, I think, so 13 to 14, possibly 15, with, he thinks, light brown hair, and her skin looked light blue. Her tail was about the same length as the rest of her body, so not super long like the live action Little Mermaid type, with big scales, more like a dragon than an actual fish, sticking out layered on top of each other like chainmail. Kind of. How to describe it? Small fins running down the sides and really small, horizontally aligned tail fins. The most basic sort of V shape, and you can see on a the most basic sort of V shape you can see on a fish, with eye spots on each of the lobes, like a tropical fish. He said she was wearing kind of like a sweater that looked like it was woven out of kelp, or whatever the seaweed with the little AirPod baubles is, with three-fourths sleeves, with the buoyancy pods still dangling off of it. He said that she was maybe like a foot below the surface of the pool, but he only saw her for like a second before she saw us, looked scared for a second, and sank back down. And since the water was so dirty, since the water, hold on, sorry. Oh, 1 second, sorry. Okay, I think that's all that I have for that one, for that particular story. It kind of ended a little abruptly. Um, you're muted.
Ah, sorry, Madamina. What a frightening story that was. I much enjoyed it. Which brings us now to our next case that we have here tonight. And this next case came occurred on September 25th, 2025. And it was reported October 15th of 2025. The duration was 1 minute and 20 seconds long. Number of observers, 1. Location, Elmira, Michigan, USA. Elmira, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The location details: the lights were in front of our house, and the trees at eye level. Shape changing, color pink and white. Estimated size, the witness didn't know. It was viewed from land, and the direction from the viewer. It started on the west side of our property and ended up on the north side. Angle of elevation 45. Closest distance 30 to 50 feet, said the witness. He was guessing. Characteristics: lights on object, or hazer on object, change color. Multiple silent color changing lights observed at eye level and rural northern Michigan property between September 1st and October 2nd, 2025. Observers. Background. We are a retired couple living in northern Michigan. I am 76 years old and a professional artist, and my husband is 87 years old, holding a PhD in psychology. He spent much of his career as a builder and a developer. We are both attentive to visual and structural details and are familiar with natural, non-made features around our property. Our home sits on 40 wooded acres about a quarter mile off the northeast road, with no streetlights, no traffic lights, and no nearby neighbors. The, the area is very dark and quiet at night, making any unusual light sources immediately noticeable. September 1st, 2025, 11:38 p.m. Observation. On September 1st, 2025, at 11:38, the witness states, I observed unusual lights in front of our house. The object appeared to be a single unit with three distinct illuminated sections that were pulsating pink and white most of the time, but also shifted through many other colors. These sections continuously changed shape, appearing to move and transform independently, yet remained part of one connected object. I recorded the event outside using my iPhone 15 for about 1 minute and 20 seconds until the object seemed to shrink and disappear. I kept filming for another 10 seconds, knowing that cameras sometimes detect things the naked eye cannot, similar to the northern lights. After returning indoors, I glanced out the window and was surprised to see the light again. I assumed the trees must have temporarily obscured it earlier, so I ignored it. The next day, upon reviewing the footage, I noticed the object didn't simply vanish. It moved in a V pattern and zipped away around the 1 minute 18-second mark. Another bright shape briefly crossed the frame from the left, very close to the camera. I've recorded hundreds of videos before and have never experienced interface. I've never experienced interference, but this one contained static several times during the filming. September 28th, 2025, 9 p.m., 10:30 p.m., between 9 and 10:30 p.m. Observation, same witness. While watching TV with my husband, I again noticed lights outside, the same window. This time what I saw was more complex. There were multiple lights of different shapes and colors appearing and disappearing in front of the house. While I was getting my camera, my husband called me for me to come back quickly. He was seeing a dark circle with three lights in the center around in a V shape. He said the lights suddenly shot outward from the center in three different directions, then vanished. Unfortunately, I missed it, so there was no video of that occurrence. However, I have many videos taken over the hour and a half that the lights were visible. At several points, three separate lights moved in tandem, as though connected. Then a strange white shape appeared and morphed into a concave glowing mass, possibly a lens flare. As a witness states, during the event, the area directly in front of our house where our generator and propane tank sits became softly illuminated as though by a focused spotlight. The surrounding trees were faintly ill as well. None of the lights were high in the sky. They remained at eye level, and some even appeared close to the ground. October 2nd and 3rd, 2025, between 12:32 a.m. and 12:55 a.m. Observation, same witness. At 12:30 a.m., I went outside to let my dog out before bed and immediately noticed a very bright light in the trees next to our stable. The light was positioned about 10 feet off the ground level with the bottom edge of the stable roof. It did not illuminate anything around. It was completely silent. As the witness states, I began filming and recorded the lights about 35 minutes, capturing it from multiple angles. During that time, the light changed in brightness and appeared, shifting subtly as I moved different positions. I went back into the house just for a moment, and when I returned, the light was gone. It had been suggested to me that one way to rule out a drone would be to shine a bright flashlight directly at it, since my drones will dim or power off in response. I did this, aiming a strong flashlight at the light, but it did not react or change in any way when illuminated. Upon reviewing my videos later, I realized the object must have moved from its original position near the stable to a point directly above our generator and propane tank, although I do not recall actually seeing it move during the observation. The witness states I have a photo clearly showing its position and distance from the ground relative to the stable, providing a good visual reference for its height and location. Supporting evidence, supporting photos and videos from each event are attached with this submission, says the witness. Now, the investigator states I initially spoke at length with both witnesses over the phone and later in person and found both very credible. My initial review of the details they shared from their 3 sightings did not suggest UFO, but more clearly resembled reports of paranormal sentient orbs. After completing my original write-up on November 5th, 2025, with that conclusion and sending it to the witness for their approval, which they gave, I had the opportunity for an on-site visit, which was welcomed by the witness. After this on-site visit, which included some extensive conversations with the witness and some additional research, I now have no good idea what this object was, based on a closer examination of the object in the 1.24-minute video from the first event. The examination of the site and the witness describing the object behavior, it was very unlikely to be some glowing nebulous energy based non-physical astral being that was able to capture on camera, nor does it seem possible that this could be some sort of deer hunter's drone. As the investigator states, the video shows a half a dozen glowing, multicolored rectangular components that make up this object, most easily seen in the 1.24-minute mark from the video. The component assembly strongly indicates some sort of mechanical device or human or alien origin. It is also a real-world object that cannot be captured on a video or photo, yet it is totally silent. It does not even alarm their dogs. The witnesses are an intelligent, professional couple that would not be mistaken or startled by seeing the moon through the trees, which they actually considered or drones or distant neighbors' porch lights. They state the object has approached as close as 20 to 30 feet at times. One does not mistake the moon or drones or distant porch lights as some mysterious objects just a few steps away. This is some very real object from the unknown agency, from an unknown reason. If pressed, I would guess the object is some high-tech project by some secret dark agency or possibly alien. I admit my stab at this speculation has not shed much light on what it is, nor why this couple has been targeted, but as orb sightings seem to be increasing, such as those in New Jersey late last year, this cause may provide some clues as to the origin of some of these orbs. Our government dismissal earlier this year of the New Jersey and actually worldwide orb flop or just hobbyist drones clearly tells me some dark agency advanced technology research is being covered up, which I think also may apply in this case. Also possibly related is the record level of jet flights from nearby Como grazing area in the last few months. So there you have it, folks. This site, or this case, involving these witnesses, multiple occurrences this couple has had. Visitations by ET. This is a fantastic case, and each time they were visited, the craft made no sound. It had lights that are unlike anything they've ever seen before, and it hovered, and there again, like I said, made no sound. It didn't even bother their animals, which is highly unusual. And in most cases that we investigate, when an object flies over, everything does get quiet, and most UFO craft, does not make any sound. And now, Madam Mina, what do you have in store for us next?
Yes, I have another mermaid story. This one is in the subreddit r/mermaids, and it's by Calm Art 6823. This person says, I was alone at the beach during the daytime, but this beach wasn't well known in a town of 10,000 people called Rockport, Texas. This happened during 2022. I was just wading in the water, sitting down at the shore. No one knew about this hidden little spot because it wasn't the main beach in town that everyone went to. Really, only the locals knew, and not even some locals knew. I mean, like you had to live right by it to know about it. Found found it on a walk one day, and every time I went there, there was never anyone there. At the most, I would see one or two other people there, usually the same folks with their cars and dogs. It was always me and two other people there, but it was rare when I ran into anyone there because, again, it was a tiny little shore made of shells and wasn't like actual sand. It hurt to walk on the shells because they would stab your feet. But anyway, I liked the solitude of the place and would walk there often. It was like 4 blocks from my place, roughly. So this one day I was waiting right, just had my lower half in the water and my arms were perching me up, and I was just kicking my feet, and I felt the urge to go far into the ocean and felt something calling me to go deeper, but my gut told me it was evil and dangerous and threatening. Then I saw two heads pop up not too far from the shore, but far enough, and that's where I was feeling called to swim in. And I so badly wanted to, but I knew they were going to take me to their people and drown me and kill me and use me for evil doing. And I will never forget those two mermaid siren heads I saw. I knew they were mermaids because there was no one else there, no cars, no boats nearby. They just showed up out of nowhere. They looked human from the distance, and I could make their heads out, and I saw their brown hair too, and I could make out the outline of their faces, but I knew they were not human because of how they showed up out of nowhere, then disappeared shortly after into nowhere. I did see them swim off after I rejected them, and it was interesting because they also looked a little like the way dolphins swim. At first, I couldn't tell if they were human or dolphin, but as I looked closer, that's when I realized what they were. And also logically, I was like, they're not human because they're underwater swimming like they were a dolphin, but they looked human and appeared out of thin air. If they were human, I would have known, but they could breathe underwater for so long and they swam like a dolphin slash fish. They were real, 100%. That was very interesting.
Oh, that was extremely interesting. Thank you, Madam Mina. Thank you so much for that interesting sighting. And now we're going to show you some photographs taken by the witness from the last case we just discussed a few minutes ago. The witness and her husband had numerous sightings, and here is a couple of photographs taken from the witness with her camera and phone. So here is the first photograph. You will see um, You can see the object there in the distance, and as the witness stated, this made no sound, and the lights were moving in a pattern like that was very unusual. And as you see that photo, imagine being outside your house and having this happen or having this sighting. And there again, no sound, no, everything was completely quiet. Here's our second photo. As you can see here, and you can almost see two objects, one at the top and then one at the bottom. And there again, no sound, and everything in the whole area was quiet. And the witnesses had multiple, her and her husband has had multiple occurrences on the farm where they live. They've had at least 3 or 4 occurrences of UFO sightings. And I'm anxious to figure out or find out from them if they've ever had any missing time. That'd be interesting to find out, and maybe I can get a hold of them and give a report back. Let's move on to our next report, our next sighting, which is very interesting because this one took place on October 31st, 1974. Why is this just now being told? Because it was reported on November 15th, 2025. The duration of this sighting, 4.5 hours plus. Number of observers, 119. These are all military men. Location, Atkins, Texas. Folks, the Fright Files is about to get freaky. So put your seatbelts on and get ready because you're in for a hell of a story. Location details over the trees on a neighborhood post ranch. Shape oval. Color orange to red. Estimated size, roughly the size of our 2-car garage plus. Wow. Viewed from land. Direction from viewer, straight ahead towards the front of our house. And size, let me repeat that again, roughly the size of 2-car garage plus. That's huge. Angle of elevation, 30. Closest distance, 10 feet overhead. Estimated speed, from about 2 foot per second to beyond sight. Characteristics, lights on object or haze on object. Change colors. I am a U.S. veteran I am a U.S. veteran from 1977 to 1984 and a former crew member of the USS Cosmer Pulaski from 1981 to 1983. My past security clearances are no longer valid, and I have nothing left to lose by coming forward with past knowledge. My first remembered encounter with UFOs was a teenager at our former home near San Antonio, Texas, in Sayers, Texas, about 6:30 in the evening. My mother and I went outside to feed our 2 Great Danes, Dachshunds, and Chihuahua. There was no wind, no noises. When my mother asked, "What is that?" I saw nothing initially, but our neighbor Ed, our neighbor who got me into raising pigeons across the fence in his own yard. I then noticed where my mother was looking. Just above the roof of our 2-car garage was a circular craft with windows and what appeared to be a smaller closed cylinder sticking a short ways out of the top of this craft, about twice as far as its bottom. As I remember, this craft was slowly spinning clockwise while glowing soft pink to orange in color. It had 3 lighted lobes equivalent around its bottom. It had 3 lighted lobes equivalent around its bottom. At about this time, all of our dogs had gone and hid. We also owned chickens, but they were nowhere to be seen either. While I watched this craft begin turning brighter and orange and slowly begin moving from the top middle of our garage towards its front and down our fence line and our driveway, passing more curiosity than caution. I raced along under this craft, looking straight up in its bottom, trying to figure out how this machine could be doing what it was doing. I heard my mom and our neighbor yelling for me to stop, but I couldn't. I continued to follow all the way to just inside our gate. From here, I watched as this craft wove above the house in our double horseshoe two block resident area. Noticing other people coming outside to look. As it reached the back part of our neighborhood, the craft began to glow bright red and continued to stand of trees across, as excuse me as it reached the back part of our neighborhood. The craft began to glow bright red and continued Esther to a stand of trees across a barbed wire fence on a posted ranch. This craft was settling down into the small grave of trees, and I thought everything was done. I was wrong. Roughly about a half hour later, I watched this craft exit the trees. It hovered for a few moments. Another craft just like the first one came down, and then the first shot skyward. I immediately ran inside to get a pen and a small spiral notebook for notes and sketches, and ran back outside, ignoring parental concerns, to sit on our porch and watch. For about the next half hour to an hour, I watched while these craft entered our atmosphere individually and in groups of 3 to 7 to enter these trees, only to shortly take off again and hover briefly before shooting off again like fireworks. They did, fly in different formations while approaching, leaving and above the trees. Then suddenly the hovering crafts went down into the trees and everything settled for a while. For a while. Then there was a loud roar as 7 squadrons, I counted 7, flew in low over our house, shaking the roofs and rattling windows. Some of these jets seemed to strafe the woods, even though I did not remember shots being fired. The jets then began lying in circles around the wooded areas, some flying one way while some flew the opposite direction. The only sounds that followed were a dog in the back of our neighborhood barking, a black sedan speeding towards the posted property gates to the ranch, and a sudden yelp when the dog went silent. These jets continued in the area of the woods for some time. Then they left block then they left back the way they came. All was quiet for about 40 minutes. Then UFOs began going up out of the trees and streaking off in all directions, some in formations of 2 or 3. It was shortly after this that I finally went inside. My mother was a strong woman. My father had been a U.S. Marine. Only my mother would speak of this incident again, and my father was fond of saying, if any aliens ever landed in our yard, he would go out and shake their hands. He never said these words again as long as he lived. We did see viewers briefly from inside through the windows. Folks, listen to the last part one time very carefully. As the witness says, we did see viewers briefly from inside through the windows. He saw the aliens in the craft. Imagine walking outside of your own home and seeing a spacecraft with alien beings looking down through the windows at you. All you have to do, I repeat, all you have to do is have one sighting for yourself, one time, and you never will doubt the existence of UFOs or aliens craft again. All it takes is one encounter. One encounter. Madamina, do you have an interesting story for us?
Yes, I do. This one is from r slash mermaids, and the title is Sirens Are Real. Here's my encounter. I am Caribbean, Black, and Jamaican. When I was younger, I was in Jamaica with my dad, his family, etc. We went to this lake slash river. It was very big and it had a log in the middle. I'm just describing it right now. Everything was fine. Everyone was swimming, having fun. But I remember my dad and uncle kept telling me to be careful because they knew I couldn't swim. I was around 3 to 5, very young, and I remember getting caught on seaweed or kelp. And I was just pulled under to the bottom. It was wrapped around my leg. I can still remember the feeling to this day. The water was murky looking as well, and then I felt two hands on my waist lifting me up, and I was at the bottom of the lake. I could remember touching the floor of the lake, and when I was near the surface, I was starting to hit at it, and then I was pulled out by my uncle. It was a siren mermaid that saved me. And after that, I was always drawn to the water, ocean, and I randomly became a powerful swimmer, like randomly. I can hold my breath for a while if I try. I'm not making anything up. And I need someone who's from the Caribbean to tell me what it means when a siren saves you. I've been looking everywhere for this meaning. I know they usually come and take people, so I'm just shocked and honestly thankful and blessed.
Ah, yes, what a fascinating story that was. That definitely sends chills when you hear it. And now, folks, we're going to have a little fun here because the story you just heard a few minutes ago, you are about to see a drawing that the witness did based on what he witnessed that day. And as the witness stated, that this object was as big as two-stall garage. And here is that photo that the witness drew of exactly what he saw. And I will bring this up full screen for everybody here to take a look at. This is the object that the witness seen that day he had his sighting. Very, very interesting, to say the least. And now, we move on to our next frightful tale here on the Fright Files. And now, as you're about to hear, this next tale takes an even darker turn as we go from UFOs to Sasquatch. The year was 2025, spring, the month of May, British Columbia, country of Condo. Nearest town, Fraser Lake, British Columbia. Nearest road, Highway 16, Alaska Highway, as the witness states. And pay very close attention because what you're about to hear, you may not believe. But the witness states every word is true. The wife and I were moving to Washington State from Alaska, and we decided to drive and camp the whole way down the Alaska Highway. Awesome road trip, by the way. If you ever get a chance, we've done a good amount of hiking. I wouldn't call us wilderness experts, but we definitely have been in the woods a good amount. Not to say it's not possible for us to misinterpret things, though it is absolutely is. Absolutely. Especially when you're in the woods for a long time, or when you're tired and, and up at night. You see, we were coming up on Fraser Lake in Oregon, British Columbia, and stayed at Pedersen Beach recreation site on the lake. It was open for camping in May. Beautiful day, sunny, a little chilly, but all in all, it was a day and beautiful and very dry. So we got there around noon, got everything set up, decided to do a little hiking on the trail opposite the campgrounds. We got about an hour in, found the river, took a couple of pictures, and turned around. Within 10 minutes, as our side trail reached the main trail, I saw a large black shape moving through the woods out of the corner of my eye, and I told my wife to stop. This wasn't a Bigfoot, it was a big black bear. I had my bear spray ready because this was by far the biggest bear I've ever seen in my life. Though, admittedly, it wasn't only the third bear I'd seen in person. And luckily, he had heard us coming because we were making lots of noise, and it seemed like he just wanted to get on his way. He jogged away, I guess bears jog, and didn't bother us at all, but we kept an eye out the, the whole rest of the day, especially on the way back on the trail. Now, needless to say, seeing him gave us both a bit of an adrenaline rush for the next couple of hours, and it was hard for me to sleep in our tent. Very hard to sleep that night because my wife was pregnant at the time, and hey, we had just seen a bear. When we got back to the campground, we noticed we were still the only ones at the campground, which was nice, but it also meant that if a bear was interested in a tent, well, we were the only gang in town. Anyway, I ended up staying up until 2 a.m. that night, and all night I heard owls, wolves, and other familiar nighttime creatures all night, and multiple times throughout the night. Then, around 1 a.m., I heard something different. I heard about a dozen sounds, 1 to 2 seconds apart, that I only heard once that night, in that string of about a dozen instances. The closest way I could describe it was a ha whoop sound, and I didn't hear anything close to that the rest of the night. Now, I grew up watching Bigfoot shows, and have never been a true believer, but I always found the topic fascinating. As a result, the first thing my mind went to was Sasquatch. Ha 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 ha. And I have to say, these did sound kind of prominent. Like, was it my perception shifting it combined with my bias? I honestly don't know. It's very possible. But what I do know is that I spent the next couple of months looking up different animal calls, trying to find a reasonable explanation for what I heard. And I still don't have a good explanation for what I heard. Maybe somebody was doing a roof Bigfoot expedition that night in May of 2025 around Fraser Lake in British Columbia. Uh, who knows? I reached out to the Bigfoot organization, and they didn't know of any. Did I record these? Unfortunately, no, which I admit is extremely convenient for anyone who is skeptical of what I'm writing. Why didn't I record these? For one, I've never heard anything like this before. I didn't know if something was going to come closer to our tent, and all of this combined with my earlier adrenaline rush from seeing the bear on the trail sort of paralyzed me. and I was a lot more focused on potentially trying to protect my pregnant wife rather than record these strange noises. On top of that, my phone was dying, which doesn't really help either. Maybe somebody else had a good explanation for what I heard that night. I would really like to get to the bottom of this, but so far all I have is questions still. Other witnesses? None. My wife was asleep the whole time. We left before the camp host woke up. Time and conditions? Approximately 1 a.m., slightly chilly and clear. Environment? Festerns, Screech, recreation site, very close to the lake. Now, folks, the noises or the sounds that the gentleman heard, that whoop sound, has been recorded by other Bigfoot sightings. Other people have recorded sounds just like that. Although he did not record the sounds, but I've heard other recordings of other people from being in campgrounds and having heard those same exact sounds, which makes me believe that what he witnessed was indeed, or what he heard was indeed a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Like I said, I've heard those sounds before, which makes that sighting a true Bigfoot, or makes that sighting or encounter a true Bigfoot encounter. And again, I want to thank everybody who was here in the chat room tonight. Thank you for watching, and everybody watching around the world. Thank you for watching the Fright Files here tonight with Dr. Fright and Madam Mina. And now let's see if Madam Mina has another story for us before we end here tonight.
No, that was my last story of the night because I thought we were about to wrap up the show.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Mina. We are about to wrap up, but not until we have our final main event story of the evening. So brace yourselves as the Fright Files goes to the dark side for this next tale. What you're about to hear is not only true, could very easily happen to anybody at any point in time. Let's begin, shall we? Brace yourself. Year 2025. Season fall. Month September. Date the 13th of September. Kansas was the state. Douglas County. From Topeka, Kansas, take I-70 southeast to 40 Highway. Then south to Clinton Lake. Look for the Bloomington East Courtesy Fishing Dock. Nearest town, Clinton. Nearest road, K10. As the witness states, me and my friend were fishing at Clinton Lake near Topeka, Kansas. It was around dusk, and after a while we had made some Sasquatch calls around 8:45 to 8:50 and got some auditory responses. Then everything was quiet for a while. Then two large splashes hit the water about 15 minutes after the whoops, very near to where we were standing. There's that sound again. Whoops. We traded calls until about 9:45 or so. I turned to see where the rocks came from and saw eye shine. I then proceeded to walk up the gangway from the deck we were fishing at, the dock we were fishing, to get closer to the eye shine. I crossed the parking lot and got to within 70 feet of the Sasquatch who was standing by a tree. He started backing away and would not let me get any closer. If I took a step towards him, he would mirror my action and take a step backwards. He was keeping the distance between us the same. For the next 40 minutes or so, we exchanged whoops. Remember the last case where the guy had the whoops? And now here we are with this case. And this witness is standing right next to it, basically. As the witness states, when the bell on my fishing pole rang and rang again, I turned my head to see where he was. He had left the area. Witness states, Carter Bushhot, the investigator, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Carter Bushhot, the investigator took me out there and took photos of my standing by the tree where the Sasquatch was standing. I held his measuring rod next to the tree. The creature was 8 feet 3 inches tall, and we were 70 feet from the creature at the closest. That also measured by the investigator. My buddy and me were no further than 70 to 150 feet where we were fishing from, different areas, so we were not next to each other while we were fishing until we realized what we were seeing. Just the two rock splashes, rocks were thrown from behind us. Then I saw the eye shine as the witness goes back through his story. We traded whoops and a couple of grunts for about an hour. When I turned around to see where the rocks came from is when I saw the eye shine. The eye shine was a reddish orange shade and it got brighter as I moved closer. The color of the Sasquatch was similar to a timber wolf, splotchy, grayish, and white-black. Although it was night, the being in colorization was clear from 70 feet away. Plus, the parking and deck area was lit up as well. One of the rocks was thrown over the roof of the dock into the water. Other witnesses? My friend Mike was with me. He did not see the Sasquatch from where he was standing, but he heard it. Time and conditions. We first saw him at 9:10, just after sundown. The entire area was lit up since it was a public fishing and boat dock, plus parking lot clear shines. No moon, excellent visibility. Environment in a parking lot bordered by an oak wooded area. We were at the Bloomington, Kansas East Courtesy Fishing Dock at Clinton Lake. As the investigator in the report says, the witness lives for fishing, and especially the area where he had this sighting. Simply a good, honest guy who had the night of a lifetime. No sense of embellishment and pretty meticulous with notes and data. And there you have it, folks, a first-hand Bigfoot encounter. What do you think of that, Madam Mina? That was a fascinating tale, to say the least. A first up-close encounter with a Bigfoot and Sasquatch. As the witness states, they were exchanging grunts and whoops, and he could clearly see this. What an amazing tale that was. And what an amazing hour and night it's been here tonight on the Fright Files. This has been an amazing episode. You have heard first-hand encounters of Bigfoot. You have heard first-hand encounters of UFOs and seen some fascinating evidence. Before we leave here tonight, let's take a look at the photo evidence one more time. Here is one of the drawings from one of our first stories that you heard. And remember that couple that had multiple UFO encounters? Here's their photos again for your eyesight. As Dr. Fright loves to show first-hand evidence and drawings. And the story you just heard a little bit ago. Here's the drawing that the witness said. As he stated, this was the size of two-stall garages. Amazing, isn't it? Thank you all for coming here tonight on the Fright Files. This has been an amazing, amazing evening. And stay with us next week as you will hear more tales from Madam Mina and Dr. Fright involving the paranormal. UFOs, and Bigfoot. And you can catch more of Dr. Fright by Googling Chris Harmon across social media for episodes on UFOs and paranormal. And also check out my paranormal group, SWPI Pekin, Something Wicked Paranormal Investigations Pekin, SWPI Pekin. You'll find us on social media, YouTube, and Facebook for our paranormal shows. You also catch me on MUFON.com for UFO investigations and sightings. And if you have a UFO sighting, go to MUFON.com and submit your report. We would love to investigate it. If you want to know more about Madam Mina, you can check out Madam Mina and Dr. Fright right here every week, Monday and Friday on the Fright Files, as Madam Mina always loves to tell frightful tales. And as Dr. Fright says, thank you for coming here. Stay frightful. And remember, we will see you next week for another episode of the Fright Files.